A big fight next Saturday in Las Vegas. I believe you might be coming out now to Haney versus Diaz.
Yeah, I believe so. I'll see with a few things, but I think I will be there, and I'm looking forward to it. Got a lot of good mutual respect with Haney, so looking forward to see if he can handle the business.
And a potential fight 2022 for all the belts at 135.
Yes, 100%, but that's got to be in Australia. That's got to be. I have taken the hard road. I have, been in the trenches overseas. I got everything now. I mean, so it's time. If they want a shot, they've got to come see me. And, we're going to be doing 80,000 over there. The Australians, the Greeks over there, the whole Australia's going to go crazy. So that's the plan.
George, we've loved working with you at Matchroom for the last 2 fights, and we hope to work with you again. Congratulations again. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Matchroom, and obviously Eddie Hearn and DAZN Boxing. I absolutely love it, and I'm always appreciative of being a part of what you guys are doing.
All right, happy Wednesday. It is December the 1st, 2021, just a little over 4 days ago. The new unified, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, undisputed champion, because it seems to be some confusion there, but I don't want to trigger anyone. So we're going to call him undisputed franchise, WBA Super, IBF, WBO, Ring Magazine, 135-pound champion, 20-0 with 10 KOs, George Kambosos defeated Teófimo López, and right now, the sky's the limit. I got my colleague on the line, Big J. Me personally, before we get into things, I'm thinking that Kambosos is going to fight the winner of Devin Haney, WBC champion, versus WBC interim champion, Jojo Diaz. That fight is taking place this weekend, also on DAZN. In fact, within 1 week, and really 3 weeks, you're going to have all of the main guys at 135 pounds fighting. As you saw, Lopez versus Kambosos. This Saturday on DAZN, you're having Diaz versus Haney. This Sunday on Showtime pay-per-view, you're having Tank Davis, WBA World, taking on next in line. Who was next in line to be the IBF mandatory? Isaac Cruz. And then on December the 11th, you have Vasiliy Lomachenko, former WBC franchise and unified champion, taking on Richard Comey. Now, before I let my colleague Big J in, I'm going to say this. Don't be surprised if the WBA orders the winner of Tank Davis versus Isaac Cruz to get a deal done with Teófimo López within something like 60 to 90 days. And also don't be surprised if Lomachenko versus Comey ends up being a WBO eliminator to be the mandatory for George Kambosos. So if he's going to fight Devin Haney, because remember, he's the franchise champion. Devin Haney is not his mandatory. A franchise champion doesn't have a mandatory. If he doesn't make a move to fight the winner of Haney versus Diaz, I'm talking about literally sometime maybe a week or two after the fight's over, then there's a very, very good chance one of those fights that I've mentioned before, whether it's Tank versus Cruz or Loma versus Comey, is going to be ordered. So, Big J, who do you want to see him fight next? And where do you think George should go from here? He's talking about 80,000 in Australia. Does that seem realistic, especially when you were telling me about how Australian media hasn't really picked up on him yet, despite the fact that he's becoming well known? I can't say boxing star, but he has definitely made leaps and bounds in the boxing community over here in the States.
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, Aussie, oi, we're still fighting on cloud nine that he won. But in reality, I really do want him to see the fight the winner of Devin Haney, Jojo Diaz, to become, no arguments, undisputed champion.
Yeah.
But as you said, I think the WBA is going to be looking to get some legitimacy back to their organisation, considering that they've finally pissed off all those trinket belts that they've had, and they'll be in a hurry to get a mandatory challenger for those belts, so that they can get back to having some sort of legitimacy to their organisation. And then there's also the WBA. So I think the race is going to be on of who's going to get to him first. But George at the moment has all the pieces in his corner. So he's got to make a decision on what he wants to do. He wants to do undisputed in Australia, right? But 80,000 people, that's going to be an extremely hard sell. Extremely hard. And here's the problem. George is not well known in Australia. All the big fights that have happened in this country, Fennec versus Zuma Nelson #2, Mundine versus the two Mundine Greens, and the Pacquiao versus Horn fight. They were all well-established, well-known ex-world champions or current world champions. Before that, they were all well-established, popular fighters before any of those fights happened. George is not. In Australia, he's a relative unknown, which is bullshit, but that's the facts. And to get 80,000 people to a fight where there's only 2 stadiums in the country that can hold that much for starters, it's going to be an extremely hard task to get 80,000 people to rock up to watch a fight where no one knows either of the people. Because no one in Australia would care who Devin Haney or either Devin Haney or Jojo Diaz is. And even though, boxing people, hardcore fans know who George is, but casual fans probably wouldn't. And that's where the money is. You've got to get the Joe Six-Packs to rock up and go, and pay their cash, where, the hardcores will flock to it. But 80,000 hardcore fans in Australia, I don't think there's that many around. So the problem is boxing is a very niche sport in this country. There's only a very small population that actually, watches it on a regular basis. So it's going to be a very hard sell. They would need a good 3 to 4 months promotion tour to get the interest, to get the fight to 80,000 people, because that's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of people. But the one thing that is positive about this is that the first time in 20 odd years, an actual boxer, not a retired football player, an actual boxer is on top of the boxing hill, and that's great for boxing. It's the first time in a long time we've actually got a pure boxer who's on top, not some retired football player. So,
well, right now,
that's a fantastic positive.
Well, he's definitely on top of the world. In the perfect world for me, he would fight Devin Haney next. Because then, as you said, that would end all of the arguments. It's like, okay, the winner of that fight will be undisputed. And also the reason why I feel, that I want that fight is because it'll be easier to make. Both fighters are on the DAZN. George Kambosos is not a Matchroom Eddie Hearn fighter, but he has fought on 2 Matchroom Eddie Hearn cards. He's a Lou DiBella fighter. And if that fight was to happen, we'll have the franchise championship will be gone. We will have, it probably will still be there, but we will have a definite undisputed champion. Next, I would like to see him fight Lomachenko, because I do think that Lomachenko deserves his rematch, and his shot for the belts. And then after that, I would like to see him fight Tank Davis. Now, I do feel Tank Davis is going to beat Isaac Cruz. I do feel that Loma is going to beat Richard Comey. But logically and politically, I believe that Devin Haney is going to be next, because here, if it's Devin Haney, as I said, the DAZN is in Australia. Devin Haney's on the DAZN. Kambosos' last 2 fights have been on the DAZN. So it's a fight that can be made, and I'm pretty sure Eddie Hearn would love to take Devin Haney over to Australia, try to build territory there. If it's Lomachenko, then, it can be on regular Top Rank. I'm sure Top Rank will put the money up for Lomachenko, but it may not be as much as Eddie Hearn or the DAZN will put up. And also, if they're trying to put it in a stadium over in Australia. But once again, Lomachenko and Kambosos was actually on a course to fight. You remember that?
I do, yeah. I was going to say that myself, because Bob Arum said it himself. He wanted Loma versus George in Australia with the roles reversed. As Loma is the champ and George is the challenger, but the roles will be reversed.
Yeah.
So
now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and also the border problems aren't an issue now, because international travellers can get into New South Wales, where the fight will most likely be.
Would it still be a 2-week quarantine?
No, double vax can just fall straight in the door.
Okay.
So New South Wales, I'm pretty sure Victoria's the same. Don't even think about Queensland. Don't get me started on Queensland. Anyway, New South Wales, if you double vax, international travellers, walk in, negative test, no worries, mate, in you go. Enjoy yourselves. So
now, if it's Tank Davis, it'll be here on Showtime pay-per-view. I don't see Tank Davis, his team being Leonard Ellerbe, maybe the promotions, Al Heyman. They don't like sending their fighters overseas, period. And they would try to lure in Kambosos with, hey, listen, you'll be defending your titles undisputed on regular on Showtime, but on pay-per-view. They'll try to sell the pay-per-view aspect to him of him. You can be a pay-per-view star if you beat Tank Davis. So he has options, and he's a network free agent. And I'm really interested to see what he's going to do, because he doesn't have any injuries from the fight, and he's been doing hella media rounds. And right now, I think that, listen, as soon as Haney versus Diaz is over, the winner, whoever wins, they need to get to the table and get that done, because the next two options, would be mandatory situations where it could possibly go to purse bid, and he may not end up fighting in Australia, to where if he fights Devin Haney, I'm thinking that's something that can happen. But how do you feel he would do against all three fighters? First, let's start with Haney. How do you feel he would do against him?
Smash him. Outbox him, outwork him, knock him on his ass. I don't think Haney just hasn't looked good in a while. I mean, his last two fights against a couple of washouts were very poor.
Yeah, Jorge Linares, a gatekeeper, in which he got cracked, and then Gamboa, a guy that he should have stopped.
Yeah. I mean, he got cracked in the 10th round of that fight, didn't he? Against
he didn't go down though. He didn't go down. He got cracked, but he didn't go down.
Yeah, that was that. But neither of those fights looked good at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, there's a chance that Jojo Diaz might beat him. But yeah, George would take care of Haney without too many dramas. Lomachenko and Tank, different story. I mean, as we said, Tank, has got the power and the skill set to, possibly beat George, and Lomachenko 50-50.
Loma's got the skills though, and he can box. So for me, I think the Devin Haney fight would be 50-50. I think that George would lose to Tank Davis. He would have some good spots, but he would lose likely from some big shots that is going to be interesting to see if he can take. And I feel that Lomachenko would be able to outbox Kambosos, and I don't think that Lomachenko would stop him, but I think it would be a 12-round decision. But as I said, listen, he's only one win away. If he beats Devin Haney, then I'm gonna be like, listen, George Kambosos, he can beat Tank Davis and he can beat Lomachenko. But as it stands right now, even though I can match him up and now put him in, he is, I'm talking he is the number one 135 pounder. But I'm talking about skill wise right now. I still have a little bit of a question mark around him, but anybody else besides the guys that we've mentioned, I feel he can beat. I feel he can beat Jojo Diaz. I feel he can beat now Richard Comey. I feel he can beat Isaac Cruz. But the three A sides, Devin Haney, Lomachenko, and Tank, not quite sure yet. And I was like that with Teófimo as well. So anything you want to add before we close out?
Well, it's like everything. He has to prove that in the ring. It's really hard to say, this bloke could smash this bloke, this bloke could smash this bloke. It's a matter of he's got to prove that in the ring. I mean, everyone thought that Teófimo would kick the shit out of him. Look what happened.
Yeah.
Completely outboxed him. So, mind you, there were a lot of outside factors for Teófimo. Everything that possibly went wrong did go wrong. But, he has to prove that in the ring. But for me, Devin Haney, I don't think would be a drama, but the other two, he has to prove that in the ring. So, but I want the big fight in Australia. That's what I want, obviously. Obviously I want a big fight in Australia. But as I say, it wouldn't be an impossible task, but it would be a pretty hard sell. Because, they only got, 55, well, that's all so-called held. But,
for the Pacquiao fight,
it's going to be extreme. Yeah, but then again, that's all Suncorp can hold. I think they only held, because they were working on that at the time, so 55, they probably could have, maximum capacity, I think, at that place is, about 55, 60. So, but it's going to be a really hard...
Devin Haney we're talking about.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really hard sell, because you've got to find 80,000 people who are willing to pay their money to come to that fight for a new champion that no one really knows about, an opponent no one knows, no one would care about. So
and he doesn't
belt
have the
will be
major
selling point.
networks in Australia that cover boxing backing him.
Well, exactly. I mean, if it's on the zone, it probably wouldn't even be on main event. They'd have to work out they'd be mad not to work out a co-promotion deal.
Yeah.
So, same with the zone, and well, that's going to be a very hard thing because the zone's only $3 a month in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to pay a main event $60 to watch something you can get on the zone for $3?
Yeah.
Nobody. So I don't know how that would happen. So.
Well, it seems to me that George, from the interviews I've seen, it seems to me that he's really interested in the Haney Diaz winner. That's what it seems like he's going for.
Well, he wants undisputed. I mean, what boxer wouldn't want to do that?
Go for it, because right there, because if he does that, and beats Devin Haney, no telling when Australia could ever get another undisputed champion.
Well, that's the other selling point.
So he'll be, he'll be like in his own league in a record that or a feat that can never be possibly done again.
Well, that's exactly
like he'll
right.
He'll be fully in the history books.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, at the moment, he's got the biggest win Australia's ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
If he becomes undisputed, that's never been done before. Aussie born and bred. We all know about Kosh, but Aussie born and bred.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he picked that chin in. But
But in this four belt era.
Yeah, exactly. In the four belt era, exactly. So undisputed four. Was Victor Chinin, was he 3 or 4 belt era undisputed? I think
three.
No,
He was 3 belt. He was 3 belt undisputed. 3 belt era. I know that for sure.
Yeah, 3 belt era. Yeah, but undisputed 4 belt era and 135. As I said, we've never had a 135 champ, except a couple of IBO guys, Lester Ellis and Lenny Zappa. Michael Katsidius was interim WBO champ, but nothing like this. Nothing comes even close to 135 for an Australian. So, I mean, if they bring the fight to Australia, that would be the selling point. Undisputed in Australia. I mean, we've had the Olympics more often. We've had the Olympics twice in this country. We're getting it again in 2032. We've never had an undisputed fight. So there's your selling point.
All right. Well, with that being said, take your time out, like the video, subscribe, follow us on Twitter at Old Mate Big J, and also you can follow me at T Street Controversy. Our rankings at FightView360.com are updated in accordance with the sanctioning bodies every month. Actually right now they're about to be updated as Teófimo López will now be replaced with George Kambosos. So you can make sure that you like the video and subscribe. And from now on, every George Kambosos fight, we're going to be covering. So as soon as something is announced, you will be hearing it from us. Please subscribe and see you guys later. Thanks for watching.